Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. I'm Sam. I've got Lance Migliaccio with me, thebigmig.com. Check out his award-winning broadcast every weekend on libertynewsradio.com. They're also on Rumble and Twitter, or X, I should say. They're on YouTube, and they're on True Social. They're literally everywhere with The Big Mig Show, thebigmig.com. Check it out, TV, radio. They have the right to tell you things you don't want to hear. That's part of freedom and liberty, ladies and gentlemen. They also have an incredible Crypto Power Hour with Lance Migliaccio. He's into crypto, and he's really the crypto leader over there on Rumble. So spread that word and check it out if you're into crypto. If you're not, you might want to learn, because crypto's here to stay, whether you like it or not. So be aware of that. But Lance is with me, and we're talking about electric vehicles because Ferrari tried to launch their electric vehicle, and it's just gone disaster. And so check out the last show for that kind of stuff. But I really have problems with EVs on a variety of fronts. And so I've been chatting with ChatGPT about this a little bit, just kind of for interest's sake. And I said, hey, you know what? Do they really have less footprint than the gas cars? And they came back and said, oh, yes, absolutely. And we can prove it and this and that. And then I asked a couple more questions, and then they break down the truth. See, you can't just ask a simple question because you'll get lied to. You got to drill in. So then I said, hey, listen, are you comparing all the road costs? You got the pots, the big old potholes. And when a double 30 to 50% heavier car, runs over those potholes get hammered on. What about the roads and the road maintenance? And what about when you can't put out a fire because it's a battery and when it starts to burn, you just can't do anything about it? What about the safety concerns? What about the, how do we deal with the batteries after these things what do we do? And then they say this, Sam, those are valid concerns. It creates a very important distinction. Most studies, when they say EVs have a smaller footprint, they're talking about things like greenhouse gas emissions, energy efficiency, air pollution from driving. They're not fully accounting for every secondary impact. They're not really talking about things like increased road wear from heavier vehicles, tire particulate pollution, mining impacts, fire response complexity, battery disposal, recycling realities, infrastructure costs, insurance and repair impacts. So the honest answer? Well, it's really true for carbon emissions, but the societal, environmental picture, Lance, it's more complicated, buddy.
There's no doubt. I mean, I'm with you on this. I'm not buying into it. You're not going to see me in an EV anytime soon. At the end of the day, Sam, I never really can figure out when I see something that in a lot of ways doesn't make a lot of sense. Maybe the technology down the road will make a lot of sense. Maybe they'll expand the driving distance. Maybe there'll be more charging stations. But I honestly, the technology that I think they ought to be focused on is hydrogen fuel cell, because the disposal's different. You don't have the fire hazards. It's a safer vehicle. I don't think the weight is going to be as much because you don't need those massive battery packs. So I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. But let me
tell you the reality of this. The reason that they only allow these self-driving vehicles and all these awesome technological advances on these vehicles, and they want everybody to move to electric vehicles, and the reason they're willing to subsidize with tax dollars, even though they're way more expensive, and even though we have all these problems that no one wants to address, and no one wants to really talk about the elephant in the room and all that kind of stuff, is this. It isn't about efficiency. It isn't about the environment. It isn't about any of those things. Here's what it's about, Lance. Control. And buddy, when you have an old Volkswagen car that you can work on yourself, and there's plenty of available parts, I don't have much control over you, where you travel, when you travel, how you travel. I don't really have any control over anything except for maybe gas, but you're pretty much free. But if I can move you into a modern car that's got, a digital transmission or a digital whatever, and I can control it, then, I make these special keys that, you can't even hardly get a key for the thing. It's harder to hotwire it or whatever else. And so, and then I get it to where you can't work on the vehicle because you got to hook your computer to it and get the diag codes from it. And then I move into and I keep going and going. Pretty soon, buddy, I'll divorce you from your car because it's just too expensive otherwise. And there's just and if I can't divorce you from your car, but if you don't behave right, you don't have an appropriate, quote, behavioral index like the communist Chinese, Lance, I'm just not going to let you drive your car, buddy.
Yeah, that social credit score will get you in a lot of trouble over in China. And look, let's face it, that is part of what they want to do. It's extremely difficult to work on a vehicle anymore. I used to work on all my cars when I was younger. We rebuilt engines and all sorts of stuff because we would always buy old muscle cars and rebuild them and fix them. And, now you can't do it. There's a module for this and a module for that, and you got to go to the dealer to get it programmed. Of course, the dealers love to control you because they want to charge you those exorbitant service rates. I mean, the service rates have gone through the roof, $150 to $200 an hour for regular cars. I'm not talking about Mercedes or BMWs or Ferraris. I'm talking about regular people going in and getting these massive bills because the profitability in the car business has really changed. They don't make a tremendous amount of money on the new cars anymore, even though they're exorbitantly expensive. But when you've got the unions involved and you've got workman's comp and you've got unemployment and you've got every damn thing you have to pay for, it's gotten really ugly. In fact, running a business at all has gotten extremely difficult because you've got so many costs and so many overheads. So I don't know. And this whole thing kind of makes me wince because I don't want anybody to control me. I don't want anybody to say, oh, Lance, I'm sorry, we didn't like your show over on Liberty Roundtable Live. We heard what you said about the government. You're not going to get to drive your car for the next 6 months. Because you're going to need to be penalized for your behavior, sir.
Amen. And that's the problem. And so now I've asked ChatGPT, I said, hey, you told me that it was a lower footprint until I brought up all this stuff. And it said, yeah, I probably should have reframed that.
Oh, ouch. Yeah. Sam Bushman
ChatGPT should have reframed that. See, and so when these clowns fact check me, see, at first I would have said, hey, this is a lie about the smaller footprint. And then the ChatGPT would have said, no, it's provable. It's easy provable. And if you'll believe that, then see, they fact-checked Sam and Sam got shut down. But then the reality is I fact-checked the fact-checker and the fact-checker got schooled. Because when you look at it, some of these impacts, we have no idea. Take these fires, for example. Yeah. How many fires do we have now? You hear about them every so often or whatever. You don't hear about them too often. But what happens if everybody has an EV? I mean, pretty soon those fires will be all over the place. And when a big fire like that happens, buddy, you got to shut down the whole freaking road. You can't just, right?
Yeah.
You got these tire particulate matter from these heavy vehicles and stuff like that. And then people breathe it. What about that? You can't even be around some of these cars when it goes down.
Yeah. There's no doubt.
So pretty soon, like if you live in the West, like we do in the Mountain West, you got what, I-80 and I-15 pretty much control the whole world, I-70?
Yeah, you got I-25. And of course that's pretty much the main routes. You just nailed them all.
But if I have a big fire on one of those, a semi rollover on one of them, and a big tanker thing like California, and a big EV something on the other, pretty soon, buddy, traffic's just flat out shut down because we've made these decisions. This reminds me of how we let China take over all of our technology. In the 70s and 80s and 90s, people complained about it. Then Ross Perot went ballistic and complained about it. And everybody mocked him and laughed at him and said, oh, that's the weird circle guy that draws crap on the board. He's kind of a goofball.
And you have to give it credit, right? That they duplicate, they copy, they don't really pay much attention to patents. But I did hear an announcement from the Chinese this morning. They will not be trying to copy the new Ferrari. They have already decided that they are not going to copy that.
No, they did so well on the Atari, they don't need to copy the Ferrari.
So that's off the table. Ferrari does not have to be worried about it. But listen, I mean that's what the Chinese do, right? They don't.
Yes.
They don't.
But my whole point is, look, we went into that. We knew full well that moving all of our technology to the communist Chinese was a bad idea, but we did it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. We know that these electric vehicles are a bad idea, but we're going to do it anyway. And isn't that really where we're at?
I think TikTok's a bad idea, but they're still doing it. Supposedly it's U.S. ownership now, and I haven't seen anything change over there.
Is it really U.S. ownership now? And if it is, who controls it? Are they better than the Chinese?
Where's the common sense? There's no common sense. I mean, listen, allegedly China is one of our, biggest enemies, right?
Well, they're the most favored nation trading partner, sir.
But here we are getting all sorts of tech from them. Let's look at the Chinese transformers, the giant transformers that are all over our electrical power grid over the United States. And we've been told already that all those transformers have a back door that the Chinese can literally just go whoop. And there's so many of them right now that I don't know what it would take to replace them.
And they also control the solar panel industry, right?
Yep, they sure do.
And we can just keep going on down the list. Oh, they control the EV market. Pretty soon you're going to just have your Chinese car.
Well, I have to say one thing. I do have to say this.
Yeah.
The designs in the Chinese EVs, they're pretty fabulous. I mean, I'm not going to name them here, but I've seen the pictures online. They're unbelievable, and they're much cheaper than here because, of course, I'm probably sure they're They're using slave labor. They might have children working in their manufacturing.
Well, they're moving more towards robots and all kinds of automated control too, beyond what we've got too.
Well, they're robots,
and we're the ones funding it all, Lance.
They've got robots can run at nearly full speed. I mean, really pretty fast. And their servo technology for robots is advanced of ours. Listen, they got to give the Chinese credit. They double down when it comes to technology. Of course, they'll probably end up seizing Taiwan, and that's really going to put us in a breadbasket of problems.
Well, prayers are for America. Meanwhile, though, we got our own battles at home, Lance. When we come back, I want to talk about this Ken Paxton crushes the old 4-time Senator Cornyn, right?
Yep.
We'll talk about that, folks, because this is interesting. They said Thomas Massie was one of the most expensive primaries in history. They ain't seen nothing. We'll talk about it, Lance and Sam. This is the one and only Liberty Roundtable Live.
Are you watching what's happening in our country and asking, what can I do? Join the John Birch Society in Salt Lake City, June 6th, for a powerful one-day conference. The day includes a host of respected speakers, 2 meals, and meaningful connections. You'll gain clarity on the issues and walk away with practical steps you can take to your community. Reserve your seat today at jbs.org/SLC26. That's jbs.org/SLC26.
Why don't we say to the government writ large that they have to spend a little bit less? Anybody ever had less money this year than you had last? Anybody ever having a 1% pay cut? You deal with it. That's what government needs, a 1% pay cut. If you take a 1% pay cut across the board, you have more than enough money to actually pay for the disaster relief. But nobody's going to do that because they're fiscally irresponsible. Who are they? Republicans. Who are they? Democrats. Who are they? Virtually the whole body is careless and reckless with your money. So the money will not be offset by cuts anywhere. The money will be added to the debt, and there will be a day of reckoning. What's the day of reckoning? The day of reckoning may well be the collapse of the stock market. The day of reckoning may be the collapse of the dollar. When it comes, I can't tell you exactly, but I can tell you it has happened repeatedly in history when countries ruin their currency.
All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen, Lance and Sam. So really quick on this EV stuff, though. One last point, Lance. I mentioned these cars are like 30 to 50% heavier.
Yeah.
So imagine these massive, heavy vehicles. The heavier the vehicle, the bigger the crash, the bigger the smash, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Two little teeny skinny guys run into each other on the football field. It's not too bad. You have a big dude, a couple of big dudes, the clash of the titans kind of thing. So you got these two vehicles. Now here in the West, you've got speed limits like 80 miles per hour now, right?
Yep.
Which means everybody goes 90. Just do. And so now you got two heavy vehicles going 90 miles an hour. And then, hey, people are on their cell phones, dude, texting. So just imagine a head-on crash with two EVs going 90 miles an hour. You got a 180 mile an hour equivalent collision, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's tough. I mean, there's so many reasons and so many things we could talk about for the people out there that have EVs. I'm concerned. You won't see me doing it immediately. And, I like the concept of self-driving, but I just don't want to be in a vehicle that I think somebody can just turn off and trap me.
I don't know where to go with this, but it reminds me of the big clashes in politics now. You got Ken Paxton and Cornyn, 4-time senator, going against Paxton. Paxton wins. Paxton's got a bunch of scandals against him and everything else. And they thought that the Massie was the biggest thing, $32 million. This thing, they've already spent over $90 million on this one. Did you see this?
I know, and this is the craziest thing. What it costs to become president of the United States, what it costs to be elected as a senator or a congressman. Sam, I don't even know what to think anymore. I think the founders and framers are wincing because that kind of money that's being put out for a job that pays a couple of $100,000 a year, there's no possible way that all these individuals aren't thinking about major amounts of corruption. They can't wait to pull an MTG and go from $600,000 or $700,000 in net worth in their 5 years to $25 million using the information they get on their committees and inside of Congress. Because listen, let's face it. Who would spend that kind of money unless it's all about the power and the money?
I agree. And the other question is, hey, if everybody just doesn't go in and get rich as a congressman and senator, Who would spend that kind of money, and who would fund this if there wasn't the manipulation of a congressman via lobbying and everything else? Who would fund that? Who would back that kind of thing? Hey, you only get $175,000 a year to be in there, and there's no real influence to be on the payback side of the discussion. Logically, who would even invest in this kind of stuff?
It's all because they want the influence, right? Ultimate power corrupts, and it's disgusting. It's not what I mean. It was supposed to be a part-time job. You were supposed to go into the Congress and go in and have your discussions and pass the laws, and then you were supposed to go back to your tobacco farms and your industrial jobs. You weren't supposed to be in there full time. They never looked at Congress as being part of that. Now, yeah, sure, I know things have gotten more complicated, but this is just such a corrupt institution. And when you see them spending tens of millions of dollars to get elected, when you see presidents spending literally hundreds and hundreds, if not billions of dollars to get elected, it's absolutely nauseating. I don't know where we go from here on, to be honest with you.
Well, all I can tell you is this, folks. We have got to get a handle on elections. And the problem is that you and I are tied down, locked down to a certain amount of expenditure. We can only spend, I can't remember how much it is per person, a couple $1,000 at the most. But yet you have these big, dark money, I don't know what you call them, PACs and other things.
Super PACs, you got foundations, NGOs.
Yeah, it goes on and on.
Industrial complexes.
Okay, but you have really the communist Chinese.
Yeah.
And you have foreign nations, and you have Israel. Israel and Donald together took out Massie. And so you kind of got to start asking these questions of, what do we do, Lance?
Sam, I don't know. Our current election system, in my opinion, is so compromised and so corrupt in so many ways. We can't even get the SAVE Act passed. Congress is just, they're going to take another break. They're going to do this, and they're going to have the big banking cartels stop the SAVE Act from passing because they don't want that high real-world asset valuation. I don't know, Sam. We're trapped. But listen, I'm out of time, man. I've got to go.
Yeah, we got to let you fly. More than $90 million spent on that. Take that into your next show. Think about it. $90 million on a stupid senator spot where they make $175,000 a year.
Unbelievable. Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate you guys out in the audience. Really appreciate you guys. Thank you.
There he goes. Lance Migliaccio, ladies and gentlemen. He's well known for the Big Mig radio show on the weekends, Liberty News Radio. Also the TV show. He does it daily with Lance and George Ballantine, and they do a great job over at the Big Mig. Check that out. He's also known for the Crypto Power Hour, and the Crypto Power Hour is one of the best shows with relating to cryptocurrency in the world. They're leading on Rumble, so check that out, ladies and gentlemen. A couple of quick stories before the end of the hour. This Trump endorsement of Paxton seems to be the big turning point. Trump entered the race late, but endorsed Paxton late. And, he said Trump's backing was the most powerful force in politics. Political analysts say the endorsement helped transform a, quote, competitive race into a blowout. Paxton will now face Democratic James Tellico, I think is how you say it, in the general election. And anyway, they say that Paxton might lose the seat. We'll see. But all I'm telling you is when 90 million floods into this, folks, something's wrong with this. And here's the problem. You ain't seen nothing yet because this is primaries. This isn't even midterm elections. And midterm elections aren't even, full term or whatever you want to say, standard elections kind of thing. The amount of money that's going to be spent on politics is out of this world. Anyway, the other sad news is deadly violence is breaking out in India. They've got ethnic clashes going on over there. They say there's renewed conflicts and increased fatalities. There's violent standoffs, primarily among the, and I don't even know how to say these things right, Métis, Kuki, and now the Nanya communities. It's led to numerous deaths, kidnappings, massive displacement, ethnic disputes over territory, and residential rights have marked the region with police corruption and violence. I mean, it's just out of control. India's central government has intervened with, quote, paramilitary forces, and they say that peace remains elusive in this fractured region. The reason I'm bringing this up is because this isn't even what we hear as a hotspot in the world, right? It is insanity. Final story of the hour, too. Well, I shouldn't say final. I got a couple more, I guess. Supreme Court prepares rulings in 4 high-stakes Trump's cases. So June's when the Supreme Court releases all their stuff, right? It's coming up, baby, quickly. And there's 4 main cases that Trump and company are dealing with that they're working on. Reuters reporting that the Supreme Court is preparing decisions involving, listen carefully, birthright citizenship, federal agency firings, immigration protections, and presidential authority disputes, all tied to the Trump administration. So, Donald's going to have, I don't know what's going to happen. Either he's going to prevail big, it's going to be bigly, as Donald always says, or it's going to be, against Donald scenario. My prediction is it'll be an against Donald scenario because, yes, Donald's handling the primaries. When Donald backs a candidate, they win. But Donald's grip on the Republicans will be slipping because as he gets closer and closer to being turned out himself, it's going to be hard. And the people that even supported Trump, the question becomes, will they still be there? The battle's on. Time will tell. But U.S.-China economic tensions continued during trade and AI negotiations. Recent policy tracking reports are showing that disputes and continued disputes between Washington and Beijing over trade, technology, artificial intelligence, and manufacturing competition. It's all up for grabs, folks. And it's interesting to me that, we've worked with the Communist Chinese for decades, funneled billions and trillions of dollars into them, and now we're having a trade war with them after we built up their military and built up their financial wherewithal in the first place. See, we should have never moved our technology and our manufacturing to the Communist Chinese in the first place. We should have never done it. Ross Perot was right then, and he's right now. Pat Buchanan was right then, and he is right now. Donald Trump was right then, and he is right now. Trump administration expands technology competition with China, the next headline says. Federal officials and lawmakers are increasing efforts to secure AI supply chains, semiconductor access, and critical mineral parts with, quote, ally nations. What's an ally nation? Is it China? One of the most favored nation trading partners? Is that an ally nation? What about Taiwan? Will they be taken over by China? I mean, it's all up for grabs, right? U.S. lawmakers are now pushing a new bill to counter Chinese AI expansion. The Chinese can't expand in AI, huh? Bipartisan lawmakers, they say, introduced legislation creating a, what do they call this thing? $500 million program, so a $500 million program to help allied nations buy AI from Americans, semiconductors and everything else, instead of from the Chinese. Well, then why did we go to the Chinese for the last 35, 40 years? Ourselves. Now we want to basically crank up our own and have people buy from us? We're a day late and a dollar short. We're not ready. And the proof is in the pudding. While we battle with the communist Chinese, states are now tightening budgets as federal aid starts to wane and finances and revenues begin to slow. State governments across the country are reducing spending growth. And I guess it's what they call a pandemic era is really still continuing. I know the pandemic's over years ago, but the federal aid related to that that expired and the tax revenue that was happening, it's all weakening. So even though we think the pandemic's over, we're still feeling the economic ill effects, is the bottom line. And former CDC field director, Robert Redfield, he's warning that Ebola could be a very significant pandemic. Boy, do I pray he's wrong on that score, huh? All right, thanks for being alongside for the ride. I'm Sam Bushman. Got a question for you. Email me, libertyroundtable@gmail.com. Do you like this ending music with voice, or is it just too loud? Should I put some mellower music there? Just wondering what you think. I'd love to hear from you. libertyroundtable@gmail.com. I'm Sam Bushman. God save our constitutional republic.
There's a penalty for truth, but it's worth it when you try. Yeah, it's worth it when you try.